What would you do if you saw footprints in your backyard coming from the forest right up to your door? You would probably be scared. But what if you followed those tracks and realized that there were no footprints leading back out, that is, returning to the forest? This means one thing: the owner of those tracks is still inside the house, perhaps even watching you from the attic right now. The date is March 31st, 1922, a desolate farmhouse near Munich, Germany, Hinterkaifeck. That night, a family of 6 was slaughtered one by one in cold blood in their own home. But what makes this story the most terrifying case in history isn't the moment of the murder itself. It is the fact that the killer did not flee after killing the family, but continued to live in that house full of corpses for days. We are going to examine this real-life nightmare, which defied the limits of logic and went into police reports in all its detail. Turn on the lights and sit back. If you want more real mysteries like this to come, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you are ready, we are unlocking the doors of Hinterkaifeck.
At the center of the event is the Gruber family: Father Andreas, Mother Cecilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, and her grandchildren. The farm was far from the town, right on the edge of the forest. However, months before the massacre, strange things had started to happen. The first sign came from the house's maid. 6 months before the incident, the maid resigned in terror. Her reason in her police statement was shocking. "This house is haunted. Footsteps are coming from the attic, and I hear whispers at night," she said. The family laughed it off, but soon the laughter turned into fear. In mid-March 1922, Father Andreas told his neighbors about a very strange event. It had snowed, and he found a pair of footprints coming from the depths of the forest toward the farm. The tracks came right up to the door, but there were no return tracks. Andreas searched the whole farm, the barn, the haystacks. There was no one, but the tracks were there. Even worse, after that day, the house keys went missing. The family found a newspaper they didn't subscribe to and had never bought sitting on the kitchen table. And the creepiest part, Andreas, just like the maid, started hearing those footsteps coming from the attic. Someone was living with them. Friday, March 31st. That day, a new maid, Maria Baumgartner, had arrived at the house. The poor woman was unaware that she would die on the night of her very first day on the job. According to police reports, events unfolded as follows. Late at night, someone or some people lured the family to the barn one by one in cold blood. They probably tricked them by saying there was a noise in the barn or that an animal had gotten loose. First, Father Andreas, then the mother, then the daughter Victoria, and the little granddaughter Cecilia entered the barn and never came out again. The killer didn't use a gun. He chose a mattock used on the farm as the murder weapon, a silent and brutal method. The most heart-wrenching detail in the autopsy report was about the 7-year-old girl. The little girl didn't die immediately from the attack. She had pulled out her own hair while suffering for hours next to the bodies of her grandmother and mother. But the brutality wasn't limited to the barn. The killer entered the house. He killed 2-year-old baby Joseph sleeping in his crib and the new maid sleeping in her room, right there. The entire family was wiped out. But the most terrifying part of the story begins now. What does a normal killer do? He flees when the job is done, right? He gets away to leave no trace. The Hinterkaifeck killer did the exact opposite. The murders were committed on Friday night, but the bodies weren't found until the following Tuesday. And during these 4 days, neighbors saw smoke rising from the chimney. When the police entered the house, they faced a shocking scene. 1, there were freshly eaten food scraps in the kitchen. The killer had gotten hungry and had a feast. 2, would you believe it? The killer had fed the cattle and the dog in the barn for days. He didn't let the animals standing next to the corpses go hungry. 3, it was determined that someone had slept in one of the beds. Think about it. While the family's bodies lay downstairs, the killer was upstairs, keeping warm, eating, and feeding the animals, as if he was the new owner of the house. What kind of cold-bloodedness is this? How do you think a person can stay in that house for days after committing murder? I am very curious about your thoughts on this detail. Please write them in the comments. Is it madness or extreme professionalism? When the bodies were found, the Munich police immediately launched an investigation. But at that time, there was no DNA technology and fingerprint techniques were insufficient. Hundreds of suspects were questioned: traveling salesmen, vagabonds, even neighbors. The biggest suspect was the neighbor Lorenz Schlittenbauer, who was alleged to have had a relationship with the family's widowed daughter Victoria. He was the first person to find the bodies, and according to police notes, although the dog barked at everyone else, the animal gave no reaction when it saw the bodies, as if it knew Lorenz. But no evidence could be found against him. The police became so desperate that they made a hopeless move. They severed the victims' heads from their bodies and sent them to psychics in Munich. Yes, you heard that right. The police asked psychics to sense the identity of the killer. The result, of course, was failure. Moreover, these skulls were lost during the bombings in World War II. The family was buried headless. The Hinterkaifeck farm was completely demolished a year after the incident in 1923. It was as if they wanted to erase those cursed memories. Today, there is only a memorial stone there with the names of the victims. The file was re-examined by modern police academy students in 1955, 1986, and finally in 2007. The students reported that they had identified a suspect with 99% probability using modern techniques. However, because the suspect's lineage still continues today, the name was not disclosed to the public and remained a secret. Who was the owner of those footprints coming from the forest on that snowy night? To whom did those eyes belong that watched the family from the attic for days? The answers to these questions will remain buried forever in the cold soil of Hinterkaifeck. If you've watched the video up to this point, it means you are a true mystery hunter. In the next video, would you like me to examine the Mary Celeste ship, found perfectly intact in the middle of the ocean, but its crew evaporated? Or shall we dive into the Elisa Lam case? You make the decision in the comments. Thanks for watching. Don't stay in the dark. Goodbye.